I bought this house with no cash, and I'm going to show you how. Now, I'm constantly surprised how few people know how to buy rental properties with $0 in cash. So today, you're going to see how I did it, some of my real bank accounts, and this is also that you can see how you can buy a house with no cash too. It's called the no cash method. I'm Ed, an economist here at Opes Partners, and this is Property Now. The no cash needed method sounds a bit scammy, might even sound a bit impossible. I mean, how can you buy a house with no cash? But it's legit. You see, back in 2021, I wanted to buy this property and it was advertised for $625K. Now, to buy it, the bank will lend me $500,000 against this property. But then I still need to come up with the other $125K as a deposit. And I didn't have $125,000 in my bank account as the deposit for that property. But I did already own this property. So I went to my mortgage broker and I asked, well, could I borrow an extra $125,000 against this property? Could I take out another home loan against this property, because then I could use that $125K as the deposit for this property over here, and then I could effectively buy it with no cash or borrowed money. Well, the banks said yes, and if you look at my bank accounts now, I've got a $500,000 loan with TSB, and then I have another couple of loans that add up to about 125 grand with Westpac. And that's how the no cash needed method works. And you might think, well, isn't that a bit undercover or wrong? What if the banks find out that you did that? I want to be really clear. I'm not doing anything particularly clever here. It's not even particularly special. This isn't some new hack I've come up with. I'm not a genius or the greatest property investor in the world. The truth is, this is how most property investors buy more properties. So how can you do this too? If you're going to use the no cash needed method, you've got to have something you can borrow money against. Now, that's usually a property, but it's not always the case. And if I was you, I wouldn't start by finding an investment property you want to buy and then going to a mortgage broker and asking, can I get a loan for this specific property? Start by asking yourself, well, how much can I actually afford? Now, to do that, find a usable equity calculator online. Just Google it or use mine. The link is down in the description. About 11,000 people almost have used this. So to show you what's possible, one of my mortgage brokers just worked with an investor who has their own home. That's the only property that they own, and it's one that they live in. It's currently worth $850,000, and it's got a mortgage of $400,000. That means that they've got $280,000 of usable equity. That's what they can borrow against their own home, and they can use that for lots of things, whether it be buying a boat or going on holiday, but most people use it to buy investment properties. And with that $280K, what can they do with it? They could buy some new builds up to the value of $1.4 million, or they could borrow up to $800,000 if they want to invest in existing properties. Now, before this investor goes out and buys an investment property, they of course still have to pass the bank's income tests. But it looks pretty promising. They might be able to buy their first investment property. Now, I've got a truly crazy story for you, but just before we get into that, we actually need to talk about what could go wrong if you use the no cash needed method. Not everyone should use the no cash needed method. It can be great. If you buy a property with no cash and it goes up in value, you can make a lot of money having not put a lot into the property. But if you take out a big mortgage and the property goes down in value, then your loans could be more than the property's actually worth. And there are lots of pros and cons too. So let me know what you guys see as the big pros and cons of this method down in the comments section, and I'll record another video in the future. And while you're down there, if you like learning about property in this really number-focused way, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We release new videos every Monday and Wednesday. Right, let's get into that outrageous story. While most investors borrow against their houses for the deposit, I once worked with an investor who'd just got a lot of cash. They'd been paid out from their business. And this person was in their late 20s. So do you think they actually went out and bought an investment property with that money? No. What do you think they did? They went out and they spent around $150,000 on a brand new Porsche, because if you're in your 20s and you come into some money, that's what you do. So this guy's driving around, he's loving it, but as he's driving his new Porsche around, he starts to listen to a certain property-focused podcast, and now he's thinking, I want to buy an investment property, but he's already spent all of that cash on this big expensive car. So what does he do? He doesn't have enough cash to go and buy this investment property. He can't borrow that much against his own home. So he decides to borrow $80,000 against the car he just bought. He puts that together with the money that he could borrow against his house, and then my team at Opes Mortgages helped him buy a new built investment property, no cash needed. So while most people borrow against their home to buy investment properties, sometimes it's not the only option. And if you want to find out how much usable equity you have and how much you could afford for an investment property, check out this calculator. The link is down in the description, or go to opespartners.co.nz. We help regular Kiwis grow their wealth through new built investment properties.